37, and before I get to the actual review, just to show a couple of other things I picked up. I know I showed the last of my Italian horror films and giallo films, but I picked this up because it was like $6, and that is The Embalmer, also known as the Monster of Venice. It doesn't really look like a giallo, but I will be getting to that. And then these, just because I've had my eyes set on them for a while. These are not gialli, but they are Italian horror films. One is a Klaus Kinski film, The Hand That Feeds the Dead. And yes, I know there is a Blu-ray of this. And the Umberto Lenzi film, Hitcher in the Dark, which I've been curious about, so I'm glad to finally be checking that out. But the review for today is, if you saw my last video, which was an unboxing, thanks to X-Teen Featurette, which if you haven't gone to check out her content and subscribe to her channel, please do so. And she sent me the Arrow Blu-ray of 1965's The Possessed, also known as La Donna del Lago, which is Italian for The Lady of the Lake. I liked that title too. That's the new cover it came with, but she already switched that over for me. Now, The Possessed is a film that, one, is incredibly interesting. It's been considered a very unknown, unseen, they call it Proto-Giallo. I'm guessing it means the same thing as just Pre-Argento Giallo. But oddly enough, character-wise and just like surface-level plot-wise, it does have more in common with the post-Argento Giallo. Person in a creative profession, in this case a novelist, is in a place that, even though he's been there before, he's not a local, it's foreign to him, pretty much becomes obsessed with this murder, tries to solve it, the police have nothing to go on, and delves deeper and deeper into it. So, on that notion, it does have more in common with the post-Argento. But, I mean, 1965, very early year for giallo. I mean, technically the first giallo, Mario Bava's The Girl Who Knew Too Much, came out 2 years prior. 1 year prior was Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace, also considered to be the first real formulaic giallo. Other films that came out prior was Death on the Four Poster, Dark Purpose, I think it's one called A Night of Crime or A Game of Crime. This came out the same year as Libido. So the genre was very early in its infancy. But this also mixes a lot of the biggest influences on giallo. Like, it's very much on the surface than as it would be later. That being film noir and Hitchcock. This very does feel like a Hitchcockian noir film, but it has this very European art house feel to it. It's far more artsy, which I actually really like. It's more akin to films like Dementia 13 or Carnival of Souls. I know those are low-budget films, but it reminded me of those more so. It is shot in black and white, but the cinematography, the black and white cinematography is just unbelievably gorgeous to look at. There's even some scenes that for me, it evoked German Expressionism, which I'm a huge fan of. And, you know, it has quite the talent behind it. I mean, it's actually based on a novel by Giovanni Comiso, which was called The Lady of the Lake, which is based on a real-life crime in Italy in the 30s. But it was directed by Luigi Bazzoni and Franco Rossellini. It had two directors. Franco Rossellini would just go on to produce after this, and Luigi Bazzoni would go on to direct the Gialli, The Fifth Chord and Footprints on the Moon. The Fifth Chord wasn't one of my favorites. I did enjoy it. Footprints on the Moon, also known as Footprints or Lorm, kind of hard to find. It's one I really would like to see, not on YouTube or streaming. I know you can buy it off Shameless. I think it's only in region 2. The screenplay, however, was written, it had 4 credits, which was directors Bazzoni and Rossellini, but also Giulio Questi, who wrote Death Laid an Egg, and Ernesto Gastaldi, who is certainly my favorite Giallo screenwriter. He did a lot with Sergio Martino and a lot of the major directors. And the music was by Renzo Rossellini, who would go on to do no films. Oh, he goes all the way back to, it's a selected filmography from the 30s to 50s. That's why it's not helping me. But also, the cinematography, Leonida Barboni, who did the black and white, also, was it him or was it the editor? Must have been the editor. Nino Baragli also edited films by Sergio Leone, like Good and Bad and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West, and films by Pier Pasolini, including Salad or The 120 Days of Sodom. So you have some very large talent behind the making of this. Very well written, looks amazing for the intentions they're going for. Because this could have been a colossal mess as far as, it's a very ambiguous film, and by the end of it, I was actually very confused. I went and watched It's Only a Movie's review of it, because there's not very many reviews, at least that I saw, and he compared the experience to watching Mulholland Drive, which that's a movie with no answers. That's an ambiguous movie. Here, I don't know if that was the intention, but it had the same feeling for sure. I do know what he means. Because I would have to say what I think the possessed means is because our lead, Senor Bernard, who's played by Peter Baldwin, who was also in The Ghost and The Weekend Murders, he has a fever. So as he's obsessing over this case, he's stricken by hallucinations and fever dreams, and so it could be like he's possessed by that, but also just the demons of the case itself, because the woman that was killed is someone he was very much in love with, and he was actually going to see her again, and that's when he found out that she was killed. So it's not the possessed like The Exorcist. It could be, by both illness of the body and mind. And even by the end of it, well, even throughout the film, as it goes on, it's very hard to tell of what you're seeing is dream or reality. I mean, there are parts where something kind of strange is happening, and then he awakens in bed in a cold sweat, so it's obvious he was dreaming, but as the film progresses, it becomes less and less obvious. And harder and harder to decipher if it's really happening or if it's part of his mental breakdown or part of his, his fever. Is he hallucinating? Is he daydreaming? Is he dreaming? And I don't think there's any definite answers as far as who the killer is or the motive. Also, even though the victim, we see after the fact that she has a slit throat, we don't get actual murders on screen. And eventually there is one other murder that happens off screen, and we see the aftermath. But there's no fedora, black mask, trench coat, black gloved killer. The kills happen off screen. So, yeah, it's definitely doing a lot of different things with the Giallo formula, which is very interesting. And again, just the last Giallo I did was all style, no substance. This one has both, and it very much of both, and it's equal. So this movie could have been a mess with trying to play up both, trying to confuse reality and dreams or visions, but it played off very well, and it was very disorientating and confusing, but in all the right ways. So as I said, Peter Baldwin is our novelist and lead as Signor Bernard. We have Salvo Randone, Valentina Cortese, Via Lindstrom, Philip Leroy, and Verna Lisi, which I know Valentina Cortese was also in The Girl Who Knew Too Much. Salvo Randone was in My Dear Killer. Also, Pier Giovanni Ancisi, who plays Francesco the photographer, he was in Autopsy. Philip Leroy, Castle of the Living. So you have a very familiar cast. Also, the score, a lot of times it has kind of your old school film score, especially for like a noir. You got like the loud saxophone or like the build up of music. But then there's other parts where, like, I'm trying to remember if it was him and Francesco walking to Tilda's father's house, or Bernard walking somewhere else, and it's just like this slow, this very ominous, this and it sounds like music, but it was just almost like a Shining type score. So I really liked that. Helped with the already very thick atmosphere. And also, to go along with the noir, you get the inner monologues about the case and his opinions on other characters and his own state of mind. I think that was done well. This is a well-acted film as well. So yeah, Peter Baldwin, who plays Bernard, he's a novelist. He's going to go back to this small lakeside village that it has this lakeside hotel, but I think it's off season. It's a place he's visited before for, kind of like a writer's getaway or a retreat. And there's a woman named Tilda who's played by Verna Lisi, who was a maid at the hotel. They had a thing together, and he fell madly in love with her. So at the beginning of the film, he breaks up with his current girlfriend. He goes back to that village and checks back into the hotel, and that's when he finds out Tilda had died. They had found, I think first they say she drowned, but they found some cyanide in her. But Francesco says he saw her throat slit, And so he believes there's a huge cover-up and that she was murdered. Bernard doesn't believe it at first until he's shown a photo of her with some other people where it shows that she's pregnant, which he knows not to be true because, and I guess it said in the paper or in her death report that she wasn't pregnant. But he has something to do with her pregnancy. And again, this movie does a great job at trying to really trying to confuse its audience. But there is still some very straightforward kind of puzzle pieces and breadcrumbs laid out to follow the mystery. Like, what was the thing about... Okay, the post-mortem report said that she was a virgin. That's when he knows there must be a cover-up because either he didn't have sex with her or he wasn't the only one, because in the hotel, he kind of was watching or came across her having sex with the owner, or with a man that he couldn't identify. But his top suspects are the hotel's owner, Enrico, and his darkly suspicious son, Mario. Those are his top suspects. And it keeps cutting back to those, that time where he walked by and there was a slit in her door. We just kind of see his eye, which I love that shot. And, her in bed with this other man that he couldn't identify. And it gets to the point where, I like how this is done. And again, we don't know if this is just in his head or if this is a dream. But like, when this guy goes down to kiss her, we see it as Enrico or Mario. And then when it shows the face again, it's the other one, because he can't decipher which one it is. And then there's other, but he's very suspicious of both. And the whenever he interacts with either one of them, or at least in the beginning of the film, it's Enrico. When he interacts with them, he walks off and he's just disgusted because the thought of him with Tilda really makes him sick. But then his son Mario and his very quiet, seemingly troubled or traumatized wife Adriana shows up. And then the plot thickens even more, because Mario seems very suspicious. He sees Adriana walking around the lake all hours of day and night. There's a scene in which Francesco and Bernard are in this boat together, like this canoe together, like Godfather 2. And he says, Francesco tells him, here's my next revelation. Look over there. And it's just Adriana walking. And he's like, I've seen this. That's nothing new. And he's trying to tell Francesco to just let go of it. But Francesco is like, see, you're in too deep now. And, you can't give up. And this is why you're a novelist, so you can escape reality. You don't want to face the harsh truth. And then the music kind of makes a sinister turn. And it kind of closes in on Francesco as he's laughing. And then it cuts to Bernard, jolting up in bed. He had a dream. But then he's contacted by Francesco to meet up with him about something. So there's also Enrico's daughter, Emma, who also works at the hotel. And she's played by Valentina Cortese. And there's a dream with her, because that's another scene where after he jolts up out of bed, where she right up against the screen, and I mean, she's like going off about, you know, the death of Tilda and how people are saying it could be, you know, we're pretty much having a breakdown about the gossip around town. But, and mostly in Giallo, people could just say it's poor dubbing, but I think this was done on purpose because it's like she's, while the audio is going on, but then while she's not speaking, that's when her mouth is, but moving very fast and kind of in an unsettling way. I've always found that creepy. If it's some sort of nightmare state, like where someone's mouth is moving really fast. But so yeah, Francesco seems to think that whoever's involved with Tilda's death is able to pay off the entire town, or is able to, you know, he calls it buying people, get them to not say anything. They even go out to Tilda's father's house, which is this old shack way out in the woods. He's like a vagabond, and they know he just had a visitor. But Francesco tries to get him to talk to Bernard, but he says, I have nothing to say to you, I have nothing about Tilda to say. But he's like crying, you can tell he has something to say. And that's when Francesco says, you know, I never thought I'd see the day where they would be able to buy Tilda's father. So that's when things seem like they're getting a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous, and like they might have bitten off more than they can chew. And eventually it gets to a point where even Francesco backs out, but by this point, Bernard is so obsessed with trying to figure it out, and just the dreams and the nightmares have taken over so much. And it does lead up to a pretty kind of confusing climax. I'm still not sure which way it happened, but yeah, before I get into spoilers, this is a hell of a movie. I mean, if you like Giallo, certainly check it out, but it definitely feels more like a Hitchcockian noir film, but with this very art house, this black and white art house style put over it. And also, if you like movies that are just ambiguous but really mess with your head, like this is probably one of the best, if not the best, giallo or noir film with psychological thriller around it. It also reminded me of like early Polanski. So, you know, if you like movies like Repulsion, or, you know, The Tenant, or even Rosemary's Baby, definitely check this out. You know, you put all those into a pot, that is kind of what you get. The European art house style with Hitchcock and noir, a little bit of Polanski, and just sort of where Giallo was at the time. You got one great movie. I was very impressed by it. I knew it was going to be good because I know a lot of people have said great things about it, but I was very impressed. So I'm going to get into spoilers, even though I'm not really sure what to say. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. So, spoilers now. So I'm not going to go over every single plot point, because even people who are sticking through the spoilers, I don't want to ruin every aspect of the film. Plus, I want to talk about the plot less. A lot of videos I talk from start to finish, but one thing but I'm also going to try to explain this the best I can, or at least what I got out of it, because like I said, I think it's left intentionally ambiguous. But one thing I did forget to mention is the atmosphere. I think I talked about it a little bit, but this movie, along with its black and white style and just the way the cinematography is and everything, it's easy to watch a movie like The Thing or Hateful Eight and get like a chill. This movie doesn't have like blizzards and howling winds, yet you you get a chill watching it. It does a great job at conveying that it's just cold. It has this very dreary, melancholic vibe to it, while at the same time having this, excuse me, I don't want to say gothic, because it is out in like the woods. It's not a very gothic setting, even though there are some scenes in a cemetery. It's not a gothic cemetery, but it did have a very Mario Bava, Black Sunday kind of, had the same kind of atmosphere while not being a gothic film. So the atmosphere was absolutely stunning and very, very thick. But eventually, Adriana is killed, and Bernard is questioned, and he has this vision. Again, is it a vision? Is it a dream? Is it a revelation? But no, I think he keeps going back to that slit in the door and peeking through, and it plays out like that one night. But again, vision, dream, whatever, about Tilda in bed with, I guess, Enrico, that's who it shows, but she's telling him that she's going to be using him for blackmail. She's going to use their little thing they have against him, and that she's going to own the hotel, and she laughs at him. And so also, while as more of this story unfolds, or at least how it unfolds to him, it also shows that Tilda is not the angel on earth girl of his dreams that he thought she was. And he goes to talk to Francesco, but Francesco has left. Well, first he talks to him saying, hey, let's just drop this, we're in too deep, we can't go any further, let's just not worry about it. So now he thinks someone got to Francesco. Eventually Francesco leaves. Like, he's on a train and he's fleeing. I know one common complaint is that people don't like the ending. They think it's too little or too anticlimactic, or uneventful. I can kind of forgive it, just because, I buy into the ambiguity and the whole blurred line between dream and reality, or vision and reality. So since I buy into that, I kind of forgive the low-key ending. Also, it is trying to go for a giallo ending, where the killer's revealed, then we get the motive, and then it just ends. But this happens twice, and it's like, which one is the real one? Sadly, this is one of those movies where, yeah, this was the first time that I have seen it, and I'm sure there's going to be people that say, I only saw it once from the other room, and I was able to follow it. I'm sure this is something that really, like Mulholland Drive, either makes more sense, or you can draw more conclusions over multiple watches. Yes, that's the case for any film, but especially one with, I'm kind of treating it like there are no concrete answers, because I haven't found any. But he eventually comes to this building, and he sees Mario, and Mario says, kind of saying he killed Tilda. From what he said, he got tired of sharing her. And I think his father forced him to marry. He wasn't really being clear. He said, my father forced me to marry her. I'm guessing he means Adriana. But he admits to killing both Tilda and Adriana. But then he sees a woman outside by the beach, and when he goes out there, it's Emma, or his sister, the one who's also been going crazy, and she has blood on her hands. But, well, we find that out after, but she says that she killed Tilda because of, the rumors around town and what she was doing and was going to do to their family name and their family business. So she saved the family name. She took her out. She says, I slit her throat. But then she says, I killed both of them. So meaning Adriana as well. And then just as she runs off, Bernard looks down at his hands and sees there's blood on them. She was just like holding his hands as she's screaming. She runs off. He chases her, but he can't find her. So then, we see him back in the one officer. He's back in his office signing his statement. And it says that even this part was confusing as well. Where they must have been talking about Emma because there was a post-mortem on Tilda. Here they're saying the body was never found. They're saying that she ran into the water and drowned herself, and they haven't found her body yet. Assuming they're talking about Emma. But I don't remember if it comes out and says what he wrote in the statement for who the killer was, which I think further establishes the intentional ambiguity. And then it just ends with him driving off. He sees the divers go down to searching, and his inner monologue says like, this isn't the story I wanted to write for Tilda, but this is the one she gave me. And also where it's kind of like he's writing the story, I guess, or he's going to be writing the story, and he is the author and like the main character. I guess he could be seen as like the unreliable narrator. But I can buy into then it just says FINE, done. It just ends. I mean, we get the whole revelation with Mario, Emma, and then him back in the office with the statement and driving off, all in the last 3 to 5 minutes. But this is also the 85-minute cut. I guess there's one that's 95 minutes. That's a bit longer, obviously. That has more in it and probably makes a bit more sense. I really liked this cut. It's easier for me to buy into intentional ambiguity or just ambiguity in general if there's more to chew on, if there's more to be invested in, like how the film looks. The style, the cinematography looks, it looks gorgeous. It looks amazing. And also just the Hitchcockian noir mixed with the new Euro art house Giallo influence, or growing Giallo, with little touches of what seemed like German expressionism with good acting. I bought each of the actors. I think they were all serviceable, especially Peter Baldwin. The music going from your sort of typical noir type score and becoming more dark and ominous and I guess more abstract as it goes on. Just every ingredient seemed to fit very well. And by having these contradicting things or similar things happening back to back, like the dream with him and Francesco on the boat, and then Francesco calling him up to meet him again, happening right after, and then with the two confessions at the end, it really helps blur the line between dream and hallucination and reality. And if it was intentionally ambiguous and it was either Marco or Emma that killed them, I'm fine with not knowing. I know a lot of people need closure. Like, bro, say, they should make a sequel on what really happened. They should make a sequel on who they say who it is. What, have it be done in the first 5 minutes? You don't need a sequel to everything. like, this is the kind of movie I can buy ambiguity from. Now, as far as overall Giallo, would it be in my top 10? In overall Giallo, probably not. It has some of my favorite cinematography in a Giallo I've seen, especially in a while. If I had to split them up between Pre-Argento, Post-Argento, then yeah, this would definitely probably be one of, if not my favorite. If I had to go back and think of what ones came out before, you know, technically even Hatchet for the Honeymoon is Pre-Argento, because that's when it was made. It just didn't come out until after Bird with the Crystal Plumage, but I do like this a lot more than many of the Pre-Argento or Proto-Giallo, which I don't like using that term because I consider Girl Who Knew Too Much a Giallo. It's just, it changed after 1970, but going by the ones in the 60s, yeah, it would definitely be one of my favorites. Overall, you know, it did do something very different, especially narratively and in execution. You know, it's not a body count film. It's not a fetishistic psychosexual killer like people say Giallos have to be. Don't Torture Duckling isn't like that, but it almost stands on its own, but with enough Giallo tropes to fit into the genre. But the absolute a window dressing of the film, black and white style, the cinematography, the certain shots, and the sound design, everything like that, really helps make this movie as effective as it is. And again, great directors, or at least one. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of Death Laid an Egg, but you know, Luigi Bazzoni, along with, you know, like, co-written by Ernesto Gastaldi, who went uncredited, but still Ernesto Gastaldi. The editor who worked with Sergio Leone and Pasolini, and, you know, you had all the great people, all the great Italian people of the time, and it really shows. I was really impressed by this film. 1965's The Possessed, great movie. And again, X-Teen Featurette, thank you so much for sending me this. That's awesome of you. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next, because I do still have The Embalmer and Designated Victim for Gialli. Those are the two I have left until Nothing Underneath and Too Beautiful to Die until that comes in, and then that'll be it till Christmas. I really do want to see a Hitcher in the Dark. Definitely want to check that out. Oh, I'm gonna try to get these done by December so I can start doing Christmas films. And you know, it's my 90th Giallo review, and in 5 months, it's just a few days shy of 5 months, I have done 74 Giallo reviews. And overall, I think I've done close to 100. Probably close to 100, somewhere around 90 Italian films overall in 5 months. So, yeah, I've watched a lot. Let me know in the comments what you thought of 1965's The Possessed. And also just let me know what you're thinking about this marathon. Did it go on too long? Do you want to see more of it? Do you want me to come back to it after Christmas? You know, feel free to let me know. But anyway, stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.